Thank you very much, President Hoyer, President Gorno-Tempini, ladies and gentlemen. In the last panel, we heard that the decade-long decline in investment in infrastructure from about 156 billion in 2010 to about 100 billion in 2019, there is the need for a union of intents between governments, long-term investors, and the private sector through the establishment of a competitive governance framework, risk mitigation, and enhanced public-private cooperation. Today's panel with B20, D20, T20, and the joint statement that has been agreed upon mark the first time the G20 will receive a unique and cohesive set of policies priorities by this stakeholder group. This shows the importance of the interaction among public authorities, private sector, and long-term investors toward the common intent of financing sustainable infrastructure. Indeed, the new infrastructure and maintenance of the existing one play a crucial role in overcoming the challenges posed by climate change, inequality, and the lack of inclusiveness. Embracing sustainability and digitization has been highlighted to be central to these efforts by the T20 statement, as well as reviews of existing public-private partnership and a more stable regulatory framework. The EU commitment to sustainability, innovation, and long-term investments, including a sustainable infrastructure, has rapidly grown both internally with the European Green Deal and externally with the launch of Globally Connected Europe and other platforms for regional connectivity. Furthermore, thanks to Next Generation EU, the European Union is emerging as a global player in financing infrastructures, as well as a standard setter and promoting multilateralism in sustainable infrastructure development. High standards are a key component of EU infrastructure investments and constitute what makes the European approach a best practice to ensure quality infrastructure investment worldwide. It is for this leading global role the EU is playing regarding private and public investment in infrastructure and the transition towards a climate-neutral economy that it is a privilege now to welcome on stage the European Commissioner for the Economy, Paolo Gentiloni. His work has been crucial in combating the pandemic's economic fallout and is now focused on planning for a more sustainable and carbon-neutral economy for the future. It is my honor then to leave the floor to Commissioner Paolo Gentiloni.
Grazie, Pasquale.
Thank you very much, Pasquale.
Many thanks to Cassa, Depositi, Prestiti, to the D20 and to the Italian G20 presidency for this invitation and this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, the extreme weather we witnessed this summer from fires in Greece, Italy, and other countries, to the flash floods devastating Belgium or Germany, are yet another reminder that climate change is happening before our eyes. I'm sure many of you will have seen the recent report of the United Nations on the world's progress towards meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement. It makes for a sobering read. To keep global warming within the limit of 1.5 degrees, we need a systemic transformation of our economy, industry, and society. This inevitably touches on all those fixed assets that are essential to the everyday functioning of the economy and which we call infrastructure. There is a growing consensus internationally on the need for greater infrastructure investments to kickstart the recovery, to increase long-term growth and productivity, and for a transition to a more sustainable economy. We strongly need an infrastructure decade. Europe is leading the way in the transition to a climate-neutral and resource-efficient economy, with our goal, as you know, of achieving climate neutrality by 2050. In December 2019, we announced the European Green Deal, our new growth strategy. We put forward a set of deeply transformational policies that affect all sectors of our societies in an effort to move to a more sustainable economy. Supplying clean and affordable energy, mobilizing industry for a clean and circular economy, building and renovating our homes in an energy and resource-efficient way, accelerating the shift to sustainable and smart mobility, and designing a healthy and environmentally friendly food system. We will need to do all that in a just and fair way, which leaves nobody behind. And this challenge is already here among us, loud and clear. With the adoption of the European Climate Law in June this year, these climate ambitions are now legally binding targets. And then we went one step further. As you know, in July we adopted the so-called Fit for 55 package, the most comprehensive and far-reaching climate legislation ever adopted, spelling out the specific measures to meet our goals for 2030. The COVID crisis brought enormous challenges to our economies and societies. And it was not easy tackling the immediate fallout of the pandemic to keep in mind the big picture. But the European Commission stayed the course with the European Green Deal and charted a path for a green recovery with the so-called Next Generation EU plan. This plan, an unprecedented, as we always say, an unprecedented response to an unprecedented crisis, with up to 800 billion euros in current prices in grants and loans, a unique opportunity for all of Europe to build back better. So we are not only looking for a rebound, which could be already there in economic terms in several European member states. We need to drive forward the green and digital transition and to shift to a more sustained and sustainable growth path. So we agreed that the largest share of these common funds, at least 37%, but it is much more than this in the national plans, must be set aside for green investments. When we think of green investments, we probably imagine solar panels in our roofs or electric cars in our roads. And we certainly see plenty of that in member states' recovery plans. But the plans also include very significant infrastructure investments which are crucial to enable the green transition and get the best out of all other investments. When it comes to energy networks, wind farms and solar plants are examples of very visible infrastructure investments. But this renewable energy generation also requires smart grids and systems flexibility. Member States' plans also feature a number of important cross-border projects, such as the Euro-Asia Interconnector, the world's longest submarine power cable linking the Greek, Cypriot, and Israeli grids, the transport of hydrogen, seen as a key energy carrier for the future, also features prominently. In the field of transport, a clean transport system needs more rail, public transport, and charging stations to power the next generation of electric vehicles as they become more and more widespread. Member States' plans include investments in urban infrastructure projects such as building new metros, tram lines, or cycle lanes, as well as, of course, recharging stations. Adapting and repurposing our existing infrastructure will be just as important. We must climate-proof our infrastructure and make it more robust to deal with the changes in temperature and extreme weather conditions that we are already starting to witness. And of course, the other challenge is the digital transition, which will also require extensive infrastructure investments. So, Next Generation EU will help raise the EU public investment to GDP ratio to almost 3.5% in 2022. This is the highest level in over a decade. And the review of the EU economic governance, which we will relaunch shortly, will be conducted with the objective to preserve also in the following years the level of public investment in support of the green and digital transition. Let me be clear, we can't repeat the experience that we had in the previous crisis, when net public investment decreased, reaching at the end zero level in Europe. This would be impossible if we keep the ambition of our green and digital transition. But the investment needs are so large that public financing alone will not be enough, of course. According to our more recent estimates, in order to meet our 2030 targets, we will need around 400 billion euros of additional investments in the energy and transport sectors every year. Let me stress that these are additional investments. The total investment needs come up to around 1 trillion per year. So mobilizing private finance will be crucial if you are to meet these goals. And this is where policymakers can provide the right incentives to steer private capital towards green infrastructure. Our strategy, in a nutshell, is to finance green and to green finance. And I'm sure we can count on the role of the EIB and of national promotion banks like Cassa in this work, in this strategic work. One example of this public-private cooperation is our InvestEU program, which provides an EU guarantee of 26 billion euros to de-risk projects of high added value and attract private investors. We expect InvestEU to mobilize around 370 billion euros of public-private investment to finance projects in the key EU policy areas. The program has a specific sustainable infrastructure window. At least 60% of these resources will contribute to the EU Green Deal, for example, in the areas of renewable and sustainable transport. Another example is our taxonomy for sustainable finance, which translates our green objectives into criteria for investment purposes. It will help guide market participants in their decisions and encourage the flow of capital from the financial sector to companies engaged in or transitioning to more sustainable activities. Ladies and gentlemen, Europe can lead by example on standards, on legislations, on decisions, and show how public and private finance flows can be steered in the right direction. But meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement is a global effort. We are only 7% of the global emissions, the EU. In this respect, the upcoming COP in Glasgow will be a moment of truth. This must be the decade of delivery on our climate goals. The challenge is a great one, but I'm confident that it can be met. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Gentiloni, for your very interesting remarks and very important remarks. And this concludes our session for the morning. We will reconvene at 2:30 Central European Time. Thank you to all the participants here before me. Thank you to everyone joining us from home or from the office. We will see you later. Thank you very much.